Hi there, it's Don Eaton, head grower of Pennsylvania Pride Trees. It's middle of September here in central Pennsylvania, and it's the beginning of a beautiful fall season. And today we wanted to show you why fall is for planting. We all know that fall is for planting. Today we want to show you how to plant a tree correctly, or at least what we prefer you do with our trees, and how to plant a container tree. There's a couple of different twists to a container tree, but for the most part we can remove any fear of failure, and we can tell you why this is a great time of year to plant a tree. So here we go. We're going to begin with preparing our planting hole. The top of the hole should be about as wide as about twice the width of the root ball. This seems to be a little bit of overkill. It's the standard recommendation, so we're actually going to bring our hole in a little bit and make it about 1.5 times the size of the container. So we're going to get started right away by removing the sod on top of our hole to that size. We plan to dig the hole only as deep as our root ball, not any further. We want the base to be firm as not to allow our root ball to settle below ground level. Before we set the root ball in the hole, we will use our container as our guide for depth. Before we finish the planting hole, we're going to gently remove the tree from the container by laying the tree over on its side and sliding the root ball out. While we want to keep the root ball intact, don't be overly gentle right now. Do what it takes to get the tree free, whether that means cutting the container or gently tapping the sides. Remember that at all times, this is like setting the roots free to grow in an escape from prison, so the tree can't wait to get into the warm soil. This hole seems to be getting close to being just about where we want it. I think we're going to take it down a couple of inches. So we'll take the container back out, lay the tree down, and go back to a little bit. But remember, we want to keep a nice firm base in our hole so there'll be no settling after we're done. All right, we're going to stop for a minute. We're going to check the depth of the planting hole, and this looks right on. So now we'll set the root ball in place to make sure. I like the root ball to be slightly higher than ground level, by about a couple of inches, but definitely not below. For the long-term success of the tree, we want the root flare right at ground level, and by planting too deep, we can cause many issues down the road. Planting depth may be the single most important thing to get correct. This looks good, so we're going to move ahead. And remember, we've got a nice firm base to rest that tree ball on. We're going to remove the tree now for a minute. We're going to lay it back down on its side. It's necessary to do a little root pruning before we plant it for good. Container trees generally have more roots than balled and burlap trees. This is why container trees never skip a beat in growing, and very rarely do we see any signs of transplanting shock. They just grow as if nothing ever happened. Ball and burlap trees go through a period of slow growth that can last for a few years, while container trees simply just grow on. There are still many traditional growers who propose container trees, but I've grown both for 30 years and can say without a doubt that I prefer container grown trees hands down, and I believe them to be the best for you as well. To root prune, we simply score or cut the roots around the root ball, making shallow cuts about 1 inch deep, 4 or 5 times around the root ball. We'll then slightly loosen the roots by hand. I like to do this because I think it provides great benefit for the roots to begin to grow out of the root ball faster, and the tree becomes established more quickly. Fall planting used to be limited to trees that could be harvested in the fall. Many trees were considered fall hazards. With container production, none of this is the case anymore. Container-grown trees now allow you to plant year-round. So we're able to plant this purple leaf plum in September without any chance of failure at all. The tree will hardly even recognize it's been moved and will just continue on with growth. All right, fellas, let's get that tree back in the hole. And just a quick note for everybody, every tree, every plant has a front and a back. So I'm going to take a minute and ask these guys to turn this tree for us a little bit. Seth, kind of spin that counterclockwise. Just a little, right about there. All right, hold on, stand that up straight for me, lean it towards me. Okay, actually, I want you to bring it back a little bit. So turn it clockwise a little bit, please. Just a hair. A little more, a little more. All right, I like it right there. Now hold that tree up straight. I like the tree right there, and like I said, this is the most important part for me because I have to see the right side of the tree, and I know I'm going to be looking at this one from this side most of the time. As we start to backfill, we've chosen to use peat moss as a soil additive. Here in Pennsylvania, most of our soil has a high level of shale, and in the summer it dries out quickly. So we wanted an additive that provides both airspace and water holding capacity, and peat moss does both of these things for us. So we're going to mix it in with our soil very, very generously. Remember, when you start to plant this, be aggressive with your tamping in. This will help you avoid staking later on. I don't prefer to stake young trees, but what I do instead is I come back by regularly and I retamp and straighten the tree as needed. And after the first year, if I'm not able to keep it straight the way I prefer, then I'll consider adding a stake, but only after the first growing season. We're going to create something like a moat to allow for ease of watering. We'll do this away from the tree some. We don't want to push the soil or the mulch up around the base of the tree that we just planted. The idea of the moat is to catch rainfall and make our own watering easier so we can flood the root ball when we water. Now that we have the moat completed, we can then give this tree ample water. I like to fill the moat 2 or 3 times when we plant the tree. Then I come back weekly, depending on what nature does. But remember this, it is very hard to overwater, and it's very easy to underwater. So when you water, water very, very well. As each week passes between now and winter, just space the waterings that you do by a day or so. And do this all the way up until wintertime. If Mother Nature's providing an inch or more of rain a week, you're probably going to be okay, but keep your eye on closely because container trees demand water early in the process of transplanting, much greater than with bald and burlap trees. This is due to the soil mix we grow in that allows the soil to dry down more rapidly and more airspace. This is only an issue for the first season or so. By the time you get to next spring, even this level of watering won't be required. So you take your time, water it in very, very well, and fill that moat up very well. And the water will go right down through the root ball and we'll get it nice and wet. So we'll fill it up once, come back in an hour or so, and we'll fill it up again, and then we'll do that again an hour later. Now we're going to move on to add fertilizer. We prefer an organic fertilizer. We like it because it's safe, easy to apply, and it's very hard to over-apply. It does provide some slow release action that will prove to be beneficial through the entire fall as the roots establish themselves. Follow the rate on the bag and generously apply, scratching it into the soil slightly. Most people fear fertilizing in the fall, but you can tell how much we're putting on. We're very, very secure in the knowledge of going with a heavy rate at this time of year. Organic fertilizers don't dump quickly, they dump slowly, and it's a good, safe bet. Now it's time to apply our mulch. Apply your preferred mulch. This helps with moisture retention, weed control, overwintering by keeping the soil warmer longer, and it just looks great. I prefer to keep the sod away from younger trees. I don't like the competition for fertilizer or water. I like to do that for at least 3 to 5 years, but I really prefer to do it for their lifetime. Fall planting is so beneficial because of the fall root growth that will take place that even through early winter, the roots will continue to grow. Cool temperatures above, ample rainfall, and warm soil temperatures promote root growth. The tree, in fact, now has 2 growing seasons to establish itself before the next summer hits, this fall and next spring. This coming spring, you'll enjoy a full season of bloom followed by a full season of growth. It's like gaining a whole year by choosing fall over spring planting. But always remember, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Today is the next best time.